Welcome to Module 4, Strings. We're going to introduce a new type, which is a string. Its abbreviation is str, so that is the formal type that you will see when you start coding str. Strings are very different than the numeric types we just covered, which are ints and floats. We also cover the Boolean type, bool. So strings are sort of the next in line to cover that are part of the built-in types. So as I've mentioned previously, there are many different built-in types. These are just the ones that come directly with Python. And here are the most common ones. This is sort of the path we'll take through the course. So bool, int, float. We're now going to look at strings. We'll eventually cover lists, ranges, tuples, sets, and dictionaries. There are more built-in types than just these, but these are what I consider the most common and fundamental types that will appear in most of the programs that you write. So you really need to understand these types and the objects they produce and how to work with them. In doing so, you'll become quite an apt programmer with Python. So this module again is just focused on strings. So you might hear this term called data type. This really just means the type. So you can kind of use these words interchangeably. Data type is a little bit more formal or more generic to other programming languages. So you could say string is a data type, bool is a data type. If you think of every piece of information that you have, like the number 5 or the Boolean true as a piece of data, then you can think of the word data type may make more sense. So if you do hear this word data type, it really just refers to the type of object it is. And again, each one of these objects can be used, or each one of these types can create objects that are used in different manners, right? So there's a purpose for integers. They have their own properties and attributes. And so same with floats, same with Booleans. They're all kind of different. Same with the types of objects in your room right now. So a desk has different abilities than a computer, which has different abilities than a pen, which has different abilities in a cup or a phone or a lawnmower. You can think of each one of these as like a separate type in the real world, where they each have different use cases and different properties about them. Okay, so let's learn specifically about what is a string. So in Python, a string is a sequence of characters. So that should lead you to the question, well, what are characters? So characters are just the smallest components of text. So for instance, just a single letter from an alphabet is a character. A punctuation symbol, such as a quote mark, is a character. Digits are characters. Basically, any one thing that can appear inside of some text that you write is a character. Now, there's no separate type for characters. So a single character is just a string that has a length of 1. Some languages do have a separate data type for characters. Python does not. It's just simply string. So that's one thing that makes Python simpler. So no separate types for characters. Every piece of text is just a string. So let's learn, how do we even create these strings? And the way that is done is strings are created with a pair of either single or double quotes. Now, before I get to string, let's review integers. So integers are very simple. You just write down the number, the literal number, like 145, that creates an integer. A float is with a decimal place and then some numbers like this. But in this chapter, we're creating strings. So to create a string, you can't just write, this is my first string. This is a sequence of characters, but Python will read this in as all variable names. Is a keyword, which is why it's in green. So to tell Python, hey, I want this to be a string and not some variable names, you have to surround this with quotes. So the way you can do this is either with single or double quotes. So if I press the single quote character on my keyboard, 2 quotes will appear. So Python already knows, or the Jupyter Notebook already knows that, all right, this person is creating a string. Let's go ahead and write the second quote. So you have to use a pair of quotes. And you can just write, this is my first string like this. That's how you create a string. It's inside of either single or double quotes. And we can just use a variable name called string, like this. So we'll just assign this to the variable name string, and that will be the string. Now notice the quotation mark is only used to define the string. It's not part of the string. The first character of the string is T, the second character is H, and so on. The last character is G. We only use the quotation marks to tell Python that this is in fact a string and not just some variable names. So notice how when we made the assignment statement, as usual, there is no output. We can see the actual string by writing the variable name in a cell by itself and executing it, and so that we can see the string displayed in the notebook. Now, what I like to do whenever we introduce new types is to verify that this variable name is a string. So the object that it refers to is indeed a string. And the way we do that, like we've done before, is just use the type function and then pass in the name of our variable, which is called string. Press Shift Enter, and we will get the underlying type str, which just really stands for string. So we have verified this is a string. You, of course, don't even need to, you can just create another string. We'll just say another string. And this is just a string that's called another string. Pass it into the type function. We see that it is, in fact, a string. All right, now, another way to define a string, and the same way, we'll just call this variable s, is with double quotes. So I will begin with double quotes and end with double quotes. Notice that whenever I started the double quote, Jupyter just automatically added the other double quotes. So just pressing one automatically does it. That's helpful. It's just part of what Jupyter Notebooks do and helps make creating strings a little bit easier. So here we can just write down anything here. Python is my favorite programming language. All right, so I've created a string called S this time, and it's these characters right here. It's all of these characters in a row. That's what is meant by a sequence of characters, one character after the other. And then I can output it to the screen with putting it in a cell by itself. All right, so that gets us started with what strings are, a sequence of characters, and they are created with either a pair of single quotes or a pair of double quotes.